from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to any episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased joining me from the US, from Seattle, Mohamed Ahmed. Mohamed, I'm very pleased you are with me here today. As I was telling you before we start the recording, usually I like people to introduce themselves because I have a theory like no one can introduce someone else better than themselves. So the floor is yours, but just as teaser for the audience, Mohamed is, an engineer turned entrepreneur. He have large experience with technology, especially AI. So Mohamed, I don't want to take much from you. The floor is yours.
Ahmed, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. As you mentioned, I most of my career and my education was in engineering. I started in computer science. I studied both my undergraduate and graduate studies were in distributed systems, and that's actually what brought me here to the U.S. I'm originally from Egypt, and I studied supercomputers. And for everyone to think what is a supercomputer, it's think of a full stadium that has maybe 100,000 or 150,000 persons in it. They all have a laptop, and all of them are working together to solve the same problem. That's a supercomputer. And after that, I worked a bit in academia, and then I worked at Microsoft, at AWS, building their cloud infrastructure around 10, 15 years ago. And I worked in a couple of startups here in Seattle area and also in the Bay Area. And I got the entrepreneurial bug. And maybe we can talk about that later on. It's an interesting story because I got into that by chance. And I co-founded my company. I pivoted multiple times. I learned a lot. I thought that I had it all when I jumped from being an engineer or product person to become an entrepreneur, but I realized that I almost hit a reset button on my career and learned a lot. It was a 5 years journey that a lot of lessons that I got throughout that journey. And that's why I decided then to write a book. It's called The Inside Out Entrepreneur, and hopefully we'll talk a bit about it today. And now I'm on a mission to help entrepreneurs who started their career similarly like me, and they want to become, or engineers who want to become entrepreneurs and to learn, what are the tips and tricks to do that and show them around the corner and hopefully build their next $1 billion startup.
Yeah, usually I don't use this term a lot, but this is music to my ears, Mohammed, because the experience that you have accumulated is exactly, in my opinion, what we need to share more with, fellow engineers. I come also from an engineering background, and like many people, we were thinking that maybe some people will not like this, but this is what we were taught. Oh, like you are the engineer, business people, like, oh, forget about them. Now, why do you think we have this misconception, Mohammed? Why do you think, and I'm gonna start from here actually,
Mhm.
why we need to teach the next generation? For me, it's done. I learned by myself.
You
But
still have a lot of time, Ahmed.
yeah,
That's what.
yeah. But no, but really, what how we can change this really conception, because I speak to still till now, I speak to a lot of people with technology backgrounds, computer
Mhm.
science, computer engineering. When you tell them about business, like they do this, no, like I'm not a business guy. Why we need to change this misconception? Why
Yeah,
do you think there's a need for this?
yeah, absolutely. There's a big difference between building a business and building a product. People like me, before getting into entrepreneurship, we thought that success is building a product. And most of the time, you get abstracted away or isolated from the business decision making process or business results. So when I worked at AWS, for example, I was part of their infrastructure and it was successful anyways. And when I joined them, it was not version 0.1. It was something that is a bit more advanced, already tested many times and pivoted multiple times, and now it's successful. And yes, I made some good decisions about the product to make it even more successful. And I thought at the beginning, okay, I think I know how to run a company, or I think I know how to get a product idea from just an idea into a multi-million dollar business. But it turns out that the beginnings are much much more messier than I thought, and they're not as structured. The famous drawing where they show you success, how people see it. They usually show a straight line from zero, and you're growing, but the reality is that you're going in different directions, and it's semi-random until you hopefully figure it out, and then you make it at the end. This is true, and the problem is a lot of entrepreneurs, engineer entrepreneurs, they get lost in between. Every time they work on an idea, they think, okay, if this idea does not work right away, then we are, we're done, we're screwed. And actually, maybe I'll share an idea with the audience here. Everyone listening to us is a friend who is an entrepreneur or engineer, used to be an engineer, and he decided to build his own startup. And and he came to me, complaining that it's not working. And I told him, "Look, you're not building a product; you're building a business." And I told him, "You need to go and work closely with your customers and make sure that you're generating any sort of income, any revenue. Just convince them that you're good enough to for them to put their hands in their pockets and pay you something, even if it's just simple professional services." And he told me, "Well, I don't want to do that. I want to just build a product that changes the world." That's a big misconception. It doesn't happen this way. And there's this mantra in the Silicon Valley. They say at the beginning, you need to do the non-scalable stuff. And
Right.
non-scalable stuff means that you go and work with your customers manually and take it step by step with them. So back to the original point, there's a big difference between building a product and building a business. Just to make it in very simple terms, business is as simple as it's a machine. You feed it with $1 or $2. Let's say you feed it with $2, and it gives you $3 from the other side. As simple as that. A product is something different. Yes, you provide a value. You might automate a few things. You might make the user's life easier. But are they willing to put their hands in their pocket and give you enough money so that you have that machine that would, generate more money than what you spend on it? That's a big, I would say, misconception that a lot of engineering background entrepreneurs come from, especially when they work long enough with big companies like what I did, and then they just forget about it. They think of a product. I just need to build a product. And if I build a good enough product, like whatever the iPhone, they think of something elegant and beautiful, then everyone will come. That's not the case. And again, it's coming from our own, again, as engineers, we feel that we have control. We know that we are building a software, we can make it beautiful, and people are going to come. It's just completely different mindset.
Right. Muhammad, the title of the book is The Inside Out Entrepreneur. So I think, to me, it's like a journey of how you see the thing inside out. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But during this journey, shifting from engineer to entrepreneur, and for you also to an author also as well, there must be some, of course, like we talk about, and I write snippets about a lot, like, yeah, you need to take the first step, you need to do this, you need to do that, but
Yeah.
there is, like, of course, the emotions here, right? So for you, as someone who experienced this, and I think you talk about that in the book as well,
Yeah.
so emotion readiness, let's call it, what kind of emotion readiness I need to have as a technical person, an
Yes.
engineer, before becoming an entrepreneur.
Yes, absolutely. Emotions definitely is part of it. But if you allow me, I will take just one step back and
Sure.
let's think about the entrepreneurship as a journey that starts a bit differently. Entrepreneurship is like mountain climbing. If you go and talk to any mountaineer, no matter how much experience they have under their belt, they would have to do what's so called conditioning. And conditioning means that they need to be ready for, physically for the journey. They need to be also mentally ready, emotionally, and even the other aspects of their life. So that's the conditioning part. Now use that analogy for entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is pretty much like you want to go and climb a really big and high mountain, and you do not know exactly what you're going to face. You know it's an unforgiving journey. You know it's going to be difficult. So the best thing that you need to do is to go through that conditioning. And this is what I talk about. That's the whole idea behind the book, is to condition yourself, emotionally, mentally, even physically, and also building a support system as part of the conditioning. And I think I mentioned spiritually as well. So there are a few factors that need to work together. And the first one of them is the mental and emotional resilience that you mentioned. And since we're engineers here, and everyone or most of whoever listening to us are coming from engineering background, what's the definition of resiliency and robustness? Because these are the two I would say terms that go hand in hand together when you talk about mental resiliency and mental robustness. So resiliency in engineering is when you build a structure and you add some pressure to it, and it gets, let's say, deformed a bit, it goes back. It is the tendency of a structure to go back to its original form. So that's resiliency in engineering. And
Right.
robustness is in engineering is all about how do I make sure that according to the design, no matter how much pressure do I add, that structure does not get deformed permanently. Okay, so let's map this down through emotions and mental conditioning. So, any one of us would have a tendency towards life. Some of us could be optimistic. Some of them are positive. Some of us are, they have the growth mindset. That's how your mind is designed, or at least this is where you want your mind to be as. Now, if you're faced with some calamities or faced with some challenges in your startup, does that change your mindset permanently? Or maybe temporarily, and then you go back to your good original mindset. This is robustness. The same thing for emotional resilience and robustness. Let's say something happened that's not expected. You have a big, I would say, event that took place, and definitely that will make you frustrated. Do you go or come back to the normal state, normal emotional state, so that you act or not? And actually, let me share a story, a couple of stories from my own experience. So when I first started, I raised around $500,000 just as a pre-seed to get started building the product. We spent around 6 months building the product. We hired engineers. We spent $350,000, and we were ready to go and demonstrate our product in one big conference. And we were using AWS. They gave us $100,000 credit. Everything was good. And then as I was entering the venue, I got an email from AWS telling us, instead of us having around $50,000 credit with them when I last time checked with them, we owe them $65,000. And we had less than $100,000 in the bank and zero customers. So that's a big event. That means that my company is going to shut down because they're telling us you need to pay us within 15 days. Otherwise, we're going to shut down the infrastructure, as you know, and now there's no way to escape. So it took me around 2 to 4 weeks, Mehmet, to recover from that. And what I mean by this is just I kept thinking about it, and I was saying, why the hell did that happen, and why we're in that position? And here's also the ironic thing about it. My startup back then was all about optimizing cloud infrastructure. My product is to help customers not to spend too much as I did. And I was saying we're going to be a joke in the market. So it took me 4 weeks to recover. This is a mindset and a person that did not have enough resiliency and robustness. This is something. This is not good. Right? This is just an example of how not to act. And the reason is because I did not get the right conditioning. Now, this is one story. This is just snapshot. This is me at the beginning of the journey, without having mentors, without having anyone to support me. Now, moving forward, 4 years or 5 years after that, I got mentors. I learned a lot. I went through a lot of situations. We were approached by a company that wanted to acquire us, and
Mm-hmm.
they were interested. I was interested. We did the due diligence. They looked at our bank accounts. They interviewed all our engineers, and then just 2 hours before signing the agreement, they backed off.
Mm.
The reason is they got an offer from another company and they had to accept it before they sign us, and they cannot buy us anymore because that, as they call it in the business terms, this is a material change to the company, so they cannot buy us.
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation like this, again, we had the same thing. We had very little money in the bank. We stopped fundraising because we were ready to be acquired. Now I have more than 50 engineers working on the company. The burn rate is much higher. If I were the same person who started the journey, I would also take it would take me a while. But what happened is, it took me 2 3 hours. I brought myself together again, and I talked to 5 CEOs from my connections. And by the end of the same week, so that happened Monday, by the end of Friday, same week, I was having 5 meetings with CEOs who were interested in buying the company. That's a situation, that's a good example of when you develop the robustness and resiliency. Yes, you're going to face calamities, you're going to face problems, but how fast you're going to recover and how fast you're going to convert that into an opportunity and then move forward. By the way, the second one is way more extreme. And the first one, we had 1 or 2 engineers. The losses are not going to be big. But here
Mm-hmm.
we have 50 engineers, businesses running, customers
Of
depending
course.
on us, so many things. But that's the difference between someone who did not have the right robustness and resiliency in their emotions and mindset versus they have some of it and they were able to move fast. And that's what would make a difference between an entrepreneur who would be able to from one failure after the other and then make it at the end versus the 90% of people, others who give up, after 1 year. I'm not saying that, okay, I got it all. It's at the beginning, I was about to shut down. And I got a mix of being lucky and, you know, trying to be persistent. But I'm not the genius, the guy that anyone would think. It's just a matter of how do you hold yourself together.
Right. So it's about preparing the mindset because these things will happen, Muhammad. You are not telling, I like this. You are not telling them you will not pass by this. You are telling them actually you're gonna pass by this, but prepare yourself time ahead. So it's like, taking kind of a vaccine. You're still gonna get the sickness, but you will manage to pass it somehow. And I think
Exactly.
this is resonates a lot because I think a lot of people thinks, and again, this is why people like yourself are so super helpful, I would say, Muhammad, because you pass by thing and later you become yourself the mentor, you become the author, you share these stories where people can learn. They say, okay, fine, I'm gonna choose to be in this entrepreneurship journey, and this is what I'm gonna, you know now, talking about this and the mindset, any other things that they need to empower themselves before into this journey, like maybe from any tools, any, I don't know, any training that they need to do, like what do you advise
Yeah,
usually
yeah, absolutely.
entrepreneurs? Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, when it comes to the fundamentals of building a business, like doing sales, marketing, etc., there's abundance of that. You're gonna find so many sources for this, either books or online communities. I'm building an online community called Boundless Founder. But the main difference is, how do you navigate the psychology of each one of those activities, or I would say um, initiatives that you're going to have in your company? I give you an example. Just the
Sure.
simple things, or the first few things that you would do as an entrepreneur, which is fundraising. You want to go and talk to VCs.
Of course.
And everyone knows that if you want to talk to a VC, you need to talk to 20 VCs before someone would tell you, yes, I'm going to fund you or I'm interested. Sure. I mean, that's a known, almost a known fact. But the question here is, how do you navigate the psychology of that? You're going to get rejected. And it's easy, by the way, to get rejected the first time, second time, third time. You know what's the most difficult one? Is the 18th or 19th rejection before you get the last yes, the last one that you talk with, and they would tell you, yes, I'm interested or I'm going to fund you. So navigating that is really important. Now, how do you do that? I mean, there are definitely tools. I would love to. Anyone listening, please connect with me, and I would love to bring everyone up to speed to that. But again, from the book's framework, one of the really important things is the support system. You need to build a support system around you, and that support system is the one that will keep you going. And I'll talk about what I mean by that. So, your support system comes from your friends, family, and also from your mentors and advisors. And it's not as you may think, as they talk about it in the media. Let's take them one by one. Your family. I believe that the entrepreneur's family is as special as the entrepreneur him or herself. They go through the same challenges that the entrepreneur themselves go through, if not sometimes bigger. And I had countless of, I would say, stories with my wife, feeling the pain, feeling the frustration with me. So that's this is something important for everyone to have in mind. Now, what does it mean for your family? Number one, you need to educate them. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And also, you need to educate them why what to expect in each turn. I give you this funny story. So one entrepreneur, he was building the company. He raised money, and he got $5 million off a $20 million valuation of his company. The first thing that his wife thought of, okay, we became millionaires. You own now 70% of your company. You raised it to worth $20 million. We're millionaires. And in reality, no, it's just on paper. And probably he is going to take a salary that's 50% less than what's typical in the market. So that's one thing. The other extreme is um, uh, a wife actually talking to her husband, entrepreneur, and she was telling him, "No, no, no, we do not need to take money. We can, salary from the company so that you extend the runway." I talked to them. I told them, "No, you have to take money and maintain your house." And that actually helped them to maintain their healthy relationship within the family. So that's how you build and maintain your family. Now, the second role that is really important is the mentor. And a mentor, by the way, is different from advisor. A lot of people say, well, yeah, I have a few advisors, they can help me. There's a big difference. A mentor is someone who would always challenge your mindset, and you would try to change your perspective so that you have a healthy perspective of your startup. There's also another story about that. So one day I was talking to one of my mentors, and we were talking about the team and the leadership and what need to be done, to grow the team and make sure that they're healthy. And he asked me that question. He told me, Muhammad, let me ask you this question: are you helping your team by giving them salary and a job, etc., or are they the ones who are helping you to realize your vision? Without them, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're not going to be able to achieve your vision. And then just challenging my thinking about around that, and making me think about the team as there's an exchange of, I would say, benefit. We're both elevating each other, and there are a few things that I have control on with my team, and there are a few things that I do not have control on. So that's a mentor. That's what I call the mentor. Now, who's an advisor then? Because a lot of people would say, okay, if that's the mentor, what would an advisor do? Now, an advisor is someone who would show you around the corner. And this means, for example, they're ahead of you in their business. They know a bit more about what you should expect in your business. So, for example, as an advisor, I might help some of the entrepreneurs to build their own sales machine, and how to do a founder-led sales. This means I talk with them what should they expect in terms of managing their time, having conversations with their customers, how can they accelerate all of that, how can they get the best results, and so on. So, and I tell them, if you do this, this is going to happen. This is what's called showing them around the corner. And then the last role, is a friend. And again, people confuse who's a friend and who I should be connecting with. A friend, you may have a lot of your friends coming from, let's say, if you already work at Microsoft or AWS, probably most of your friends are coming from those places, or maybe an old school friend. But that's not the correct friend that you should have, and have them with you in that journey, or to basically talk with them about the journey. A friend is someone also who would understand what's going on inside you, and based on the situation that you're going through, and support you emotionally, pretty much like your family. For example, if I talk to one of my friends who are working at Microsoft right now, and I tell them I'm about to run out of funding, or I cannot find the engineer that I'm really looking for, the first response that they're going to have, is going to be coming out of their position at Microsoft. They'll say, okay, then pay them more. You know what? This is not how you hire engineers in startups. It's not about paying them more. You're looking for pirates who would take the risk with you and work with you. So you need to find a friend who was an entrepreneur, already an entrepreneur, and they can empathize with you. They can connect and understand what's happening inside your head as you pass through different situations. The other friends, you still need them, of course, to just disconnect, but they're not the ones who are going to give you, I would say, the right advice. Everyone would be sincere with you. All your friends hopefully love you, but and they're sincere in giving you the advice. But would it be really the right advice? To guarantee this, the advice that would really matter to you, they need to come from your friend who was ahead of you, who did that before. And that's why I usually advise entrepreneurs to go and expand their network as they start. This is part of the conditioning. Go and expand your network.
Right. Like you dissected it, this Muhammad in a very, I would say, detailed way for entrepreneurs. Especially when you mentioned like it's not what they see in the media. I like this part. It's not like it's like bit more complicated than we are, and I know you are not mentioning all these to scare them. Actually, you are mentioning all these to again part of the preparation of being successful entrepreneurs. Now, one point here regarding, and you kind of answered the question that I had in mind at the end about expanding the network. Now, if I am first time founder, right, a first time entrepreneur coming from a technical background, regardless what's my background, um, I can start expand this network. I gotta tell you this from my kind of personal experience. Of course, I learned with time. The issue is, Muhammad, sometimes, and I'm not sure if it's something global, is it in some ecosystems, you see these people that they claim, right? So there's a lot of people who would come to me as a new entrepreneur. He say, Mehmet, you know what? Like you should do this, you should not do that because blah blah blah. Or like, you know what, I gonna introduce you to these guys. And then the problem is sometimes I hear, and I face it honestly myself, not as a entrepreneur in the sense of starting a business, but in the sense of doing many things. There are these time wasters, I would say, that would suck your time. And at the end, you say, you know what, like if I maybe, especially as an engineer mindset, oh my god, like if I have spent like these 2 3 hours instead of just talking no sense, and let's say coding something or maybe doing the architecture of our next, I don't know what, I would have benefited a lot. So how to avoid these pitfalls also as well,
Yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely. Look,
yeah, mentors,
there's no,
advisors especially.
yes, absolutely. Now, there is no magical, I would say, there's no silver bullet. But
Of course.
look, there are a few things, and this is also a tendency of engineers like you and me. We tend to go and build things, right? And we
Right.
tend to have structure in what we do. And this is a good thing. But you know what? Here's one thing that I discovered: opportunities are with people. And in other
Yeah.
words, you need to go and talk with people. Now, as you said, there are going to be a lot of time wasters. First of all, it's fine at the beginning. It's a skill that you get. I'm working with an entrepreneur right now, and he's fundraising, and he talks to VCs, and they say, "We're interested. We're going to fund you." And I tell him, "Okay, tell me what you have, what they're telling you, what kind of questions he ask you." And he goes through some of the questions. I tell him, "You know what? They're not going to fund you. They're just asking this to what's so called, they have a startup pipeline to go to their LPs and tell them, hey, we talked to 100 startups this month and we're funding one. So you're part of their statistics. They're not going to fund you." How did I know that? I knew that from the experience. I had to go through those time wasters. In reality, they're not time wasters. So that's number one. So just have this in mind. Any time that you think that it, or any interaction that you think it wasted your time, is a learning experience. You're gonna know who not to talk with after that. Now, okay, so let's flip that. What kind of considerations should you have to think of people and talk with them? First of all, as you implied, Mehmet, being an entrepreneur is a very fuzzy term. By the way, in the US, if you own a restaurant, you're called an entrepreneur. Okay.
Right.
And with all due respect to the restaurant owners, but that's not the entrepreneurship that we talk about. The entrepreneurship that we talk about, an innovative idea that no one built before, in very tough circumstances, very little resources, and you now try to make it a business. That's the true definition of entrepreneurship. So have that definition in mind. That's number one. And number two, when you talk with others, be clear about what you really want from them. I mean, it's okay to talk with an advisor and have an advisor relationship with someone who he never was an entrepreneur before. But you want to be clear. They're not going to, with them and with yourself, they're not going to help you to build your company. They're probably going to help you, for example, to secure a contract with an enterprise, right? Do not take an advice from them about, let's say, how to build your company or team. Actually, I have a story for that. I had an advisor exactly like that. He's a great guy, honest guy. He was sincere about my success. And one day I was taking his opinion about having a booth in a conference, and who should be in that booth, how should we organize, and so on. And we were a 15-person company. And he told me, Muhammad, you know what? You should not stand in the booth yourself. There's no CEO that will go and stand in the booth themselves. And you should have this person representing the company. This is how you educate them, and so on. He was sincere, but he got it from his own enterprise experience. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, he would never go and stand in a booth. So he got it from that perspective. That was the right person, wrong advice for the wrong situation.
Right.
Now, but if I talk with him about, let's say, how do you make a deal with Accenture? How do you make a deal with, whatever, any other big company, enterprise company? He will give me an advice, the right one, without any problems. So this is also another thing. When you go and approach someone, you have to have that purpose in mind. What exactly they're going to help me with? Maybe they're just going to help you with a connection. Maybe they're going to become an angel investor. Just be clear about that. And then the other thing, and here's sales, and I know this is difficult for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially engineers. Engineers, they feel embarrassed, or they do not feel that they should ask for money or ask for that they want, in many cases, just straight up. So at the beginning, I remember many, many meetings, even with VC. I'm going to spend, maybe if it's 1 hour meeting, I spend 50 minutes talking about the product, the technology, and maybe at the end I would ask for money. It should be the other way around. You spend the first 10, 15 minutes telling them about your idea, and you tell them, I need this amount of money to do such and such. And then you spend the rest of the meeting discussing with them why this money would make sense, or how this money would help you. That's also another thing. Be straight up about what you want to ask, because that's how if it's I would say, you pop the bubble. You basically, if they're here for different expectations, you set it from the beginning. And by the way, you know what? They're the first ones, if they know that they cannot help you, or you do not have what they're looking for, they're the first one who are going to just stop it and move forward, and you move forward. Ask what you want for. And it doesn't mean that you're, let's say, a mean person, or you're doing something that is not right. You still want to be a human and build the relationship. There is no doubt about that. This is definitely non-negotiable. I think you should connect with everyone. But in between, just be clear. You know, we're meeting today. Hopefully, if everything goes well, that you would fund me, right? Or you would help me with one, two, three. But we're not gonna just sit, in a cafe, spend a few hours talking about non-related stuff.
Absolutely. And I asked this question on a purpose, and I know that you're gonna answer it this way because I lived it. Now, to your point, um, it depends on our personalities, and I think Muhammad, we share all the journey, and we share like a little bit. I feel the personality of being nice and kind also as well. So, as act of kindness from me, I used to accept anyone like who say, "Hey, like for example, I'm visiting Dubai. Let's meet. Yeah, let's meet, right?" And because I have something I want to share with you. And there's this famous thing, especially I'm sure like a lot of people they get it on LinkedIn. Let's try to find some synergies. And like at the beginning, and especially I went out from I was working at the corporate work, let's say corporate job, and then I went out starting the podcast, trying to discover what's around me, and said, okay, let's discover. And after I learned to ask this question straightforward, and I'm not mean to your point, and this is just to confirm what you're saying. Hey, like I like to reply people. This is something itch in me, even if it's a very cold thing. But here's what I start to say. Okay, pleasure. E-meeting you, whatever, especially if it's like LinkedIn. Look, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. If you can just tell me exactly what you're trying to achieve here, if we can, and I think this is very good, and I learned it from some other like famous entrepreneurs, like setting the purpose of any meeting, right? So, and there's like it or don't agree with him. Like Elon Musk is famous, like for saying, like if it's no need for meetings. Jeff Bezos, they say the same thing.
Yeah.
Like why we are meeting? Like tell me why you want to meet me. Okay, just to know each other is fine. We can do it on a Google Meet. I don't need to drive like maybe 1 hour to just say,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
how are you? Right. So I think this is exactly what I was mentioning, Muhammad. And then regarding some other things you just mentioned about the being able to filter down the road, and I think this is part of the journey. Now, as entrepreneurs, um, we need also, and you touch on it multiple times, talking to raise funds, like talking to investors, whether angel investors, VCs, and so on.
Yeah.
Uh, Anything that they need also to prepare themselves in for this journey, because I know a lot, again, there's a lot of noise out
Yeah.
there. So people who shows investors as evil, some people say like all VCs are not necessarily like they are evil of all things, and sometimes like do this, do that. How they can also filter this out, and really what they need to do to go and say, okay, you know what, we're ready for raising a round, whether it's an angel round or a seed round, and take it forward. And I know if they are second, I know because I interact with a lot of founders. Second time founders, it's much easy for them because they
Yeah.
learned it already. It's
Yeah.
not easy in the sense of reaching, but they know. Now they know how it
You
works.
have the right
But first,
expectation. Exactly.
yeah, but first time founders, I'm
Sure.
too much,
Yeah.
let's
There's.
say, in
Yeah.
empathy with them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy that you're asking that question because also I was in the same situation at the beginning. I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what to do, and a lot of things were going in my head. Now let's assume now whatever I'm going to share at the moment is based on the fact that you're already ready. I mean, you have an idea, you vetted your
Mm-hmm.
idea, and now you want to fund, raise, or talk to VCs. So let's talk about a few fundamentals, and then maybe we can talk about the process. So the fundamentals. Number one, VCs make lots of mistakes, and they're just like you. And raising money does not mean that you made it or successful. That's number one mistake that I see it with a lot of entrepreneurs. They think, okay, I need to fundraise. I need this is for me to go faster to build the product. As a matter of fact, talking to VCs should come for you only to grow, not to just build the product from scratch. That's my point of view. Number two, VCs are just human beings like you and me. and they do not like to make decisions based on just perception. And they're not going to meet you for one or two times and just give you the money, especially it's a large amount of money. They need to trust you. They need to have that relationship with you. They need to know who you are. And there's a process for that. We're going to talk about it in a bit.
Sure.
Now, the third and most important thing is you need to understand as an entrepreneur how the VC industry works. And that's actually made a huge difference. Frankly, after setting my company, I decided to become a VC. I really wanted to be a VC. So I went to a 16-week boot camp. I learned everything about becoming a VC. I even created my thesis, and I even raised some initial fund to build my own fund. At the end, I decided, no, you know what? I need to be closer to the entrepreneurs and be on their side. So I decided not to really pursue that. But that gave me an insight of how VC industry works. Actually, here's a number, just a small statistic from that industry. When we did the model for our fund, it was a relatively small fund, $10 million. And we said we're going to invest in around 13 to 14 companies. You know how many companies we expected uh, to go bankrupt and still make 3x the money? We would return back $30 million. We expected out of the 14, 12 of them will be go bankrupt. So it's expected in my model that 12 of them would just go nowhere. And one of them will have a great success and one of them will have a medium success and have a 3x. So VCs, this is how they think. Okay, so those are the fundamentals. Now, what's the process? How do you really start thinking of VCs? Before that, what you should not be doing, and then we'll talk about what you should be doing. Number one, it's not a transaction. So it's not something that you go and send, let's say, hundreds of emails to VCs trying to connect with them and expecting, let's say, 1% response rate. So this is good. All I need are just two VCs and I'm good. This is not how it works at all. VCs is a very small community. They talk to each other. And if they learn that you're just this kind of person who are trying to do transactional kind of interaction with them, they will shut you off and talk to everyone else, and you have almost zero chance to move forward. So it's all about building the relationship. Now, how do you build the relationship? You know, we were talking earlier. Should we just send them an email and say, "Hey, I'm interested to know you"? No, that's wasting their time. That's wasting your time. You need to be clear from the beginning. What do you want to do? You really want to build a startup, and you're now in your journey. So you start with an idea, and usually the startup would have 3 to 5 stages. The first one is validating your idea. Do I have a really good idea or not? Let's say you did validate your idea with very little money from your pocket, and you have some initial traction or some good insights. This is when you start to talk with VCs. Let's say you collect 20, 30 VCs through your networks. Your network would introduce you to them, and you set up a meeting with them. You tell them, look, I'm an entrepreneur or about to be an entrepreneur. I'm building a company in that space, and I'm now in the idea validation. Would you like for me to just come and show you what I got so far? I'm not fundraising at the moment. I just want to show you what I have. That's the beginning of building a trust with the VC, because now you're telling them, I trust your judgment. You're probably going to give me something. And also, you're going to give them some insight. You're telling them, I talked to a 50 potential customers in that space, and this is what I learned from them. They like to learn that. They like to see that. And here's what they do at the end of the meeting. They take a snapshot of you. They basically say, okay, Mehmet now is building this idea, and he's at the beginning and he validated it this way. I know that he's not ready to raise money from me, but okay, here's what I learned about him. And then let's say you create a small newsletter, and this is of course part of it. You tell them at the end of the meeting, Mr. VC, I have a newsletter and I send monthly updates. Can I add you to this? They say, yeah, sure. So you send them every month your updates. Hey, I validated with those customers. I was able to do this and do that. And then 3 months after this, ask for another meeting. Tell them, at the beginning, I met you when I was just validating the idea. Now I have an MVP, a minimum viable product. And it works with those 2, 3 customers. And here's what I'm validating even further. They took another snapshot. You see, now you're building the relationship with them in a meaningful way. You're showing them that you're persistent. You're doing it even if you did not get the funding. You're showing them your thought process. And then you're, let's say, 2, 3 months after, you tell them, Mr. VC, I'm ready now to raise funds. Here's the product. Here are the customers. I have a good understanding of how things would work. And then you take it from that point. So that's, of course, a very high level process. If anyone is interested to learn more about that, again, if you go to my website, boundlessfounder.co/resources, you can download actually the VC guide or the fundraising guide and how do you build those relationship with VCs. That guide will take you through that process that we talked about. It's at 30 something pages that just takes you step by step, including templates of what kind of emails you need to send, all for free, because I really want to help as many entrepreneurs as possible.
I'm happy you mentioned about this because usually this is where I ask my guests to guide us where they can find any useful resources. Of course, they will find it in the show notes. Now, one point also, Muhammad, which I think we didn't touch on, as a tech itself, right? So us as engineers mainly, we get excited when we see something new. And of course, for example, let's take it as a case study for us, the
Yeah,
AI, the
yeah,
generative AI and all what happened. Now, when we start to build, and this is maybe would relate a little bit to the start of the conversation.
yeah.
Now, I'm building product versus I'm building,
A
just
business. Yeah,
a business. Now, how I can, as an entrepreneur coming from engineering background, without showing, and again, this is because of the noise. We repeated noise because really there's a lot of noise out there.
yeah,
How I can really, whether to customers, whether to VCs, whether to, maybe partners that I might work with, I can really take this idea that I have, this technology that I'm building on top of, let's say, AI, right?
hmm,
And I'm developing something which is really innovative. It's not just yet another AI powered something. And I want to talk to people about it. So, where should I start? Should I focus more on the coolness of technology? And, I have this engineer who's my co founder also, and he's like super smart in large language models. Or I should go and focus on the problem that I'm solving and why now is the best time. So how also I can get myself into this when I'm building
yeah.
such
You're
product.
spot on. You said it right. So, which is the focus on the problem. Because at the end of the day, technology is enabler. And this is also another thing for us as engineers. We get excited about the technology. I'm building an AI enabled such and such and such. VCs will will basically tune out. Your customers definitely will tune out. Yeah, maybe the AI will catch their attention. But if you're not clear immediately what kind of problem you're solving and whether this problem is really important for them or not, you're going to lose them. They're going to think that you're just, another nerd trying to show off your knowledge about the AI or any technology, and they're not going to connect with you. And that's why it's an art, by the way, to learn how to demonstrate and understand the problem. There's a really nice book called The Mum Test. And the
Mm-hmm.
book is probably you know it, and a lot of people know about that. And this book actually turned my life. It changed my life, even though it's a very small book. It's only a 2 hour reading book, um, but it showed me how to ask about the problem and assess whether the problem is really important or not. And also, there's another thing. Since we mentioned the problem, not all the problems are the same. I'll give you an example. If, let's say, you came out of your work, your house, and you just found a small dent in your car, would you take your day off, go and book an appointment with a workshop and try to fix it immediately? It's a small dent. You wouldn't do that. It's a problem, right? But you wouldn't do that. But let's say your wife is calling you and she's telling you there's a rat in the house or there's fire. All right, what would you do? You would just drop everything and go and fix the problem, right? Unless you want to
Emergency.
play games with your wife, that's a story. but that's a problem that you want to solve, not the first one. And that's also another misconception or another thing that many entrepreneurs talk about, or they say, yeah, there's a problem. I'm going to fix that problem. Yeah. You know what? I tell a lot of entrepreneurs, I know it's a problem, but is it something that is happening every day? Is it acute enough? Is it really painful enough? If not, then you have a very little chance, unless there is a lifestyle changes, like what happened with Uber, like what happened with, Airbnb. Those are different categories. But generally, the problem need to be like that. And there again, it's an art how to ask that. And actually, I'm releasing next week a free course on how do you validate your idea. It's just a 45 minutes course where you go through what kind of questions you need to ask. How do you really assess if this is an important problem? And not only that, how do you even pivot? Because this is important thing. It's not only about assessing the problem, it's also about pivoting along the way, so that okay, it's not a big problem, but you know what? Maybe there's a bigger problem beside in that same space beside that you can fix. And then you keep going. That's the journey of the entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I keep telling people, look, and that's no problem, no harm that at the beginning, although maybe you are solving a real problem, but maybe you're not getting the right messaging in front of people. Maybe you're not asking the right questions back to the book, right? Because it's all about discovery and making sure that really people understand. Because if I go and ask Muhammad now, Muhammad, do you have this problem? Most probably he will tell me no, right? So this is the usually the mistake. I did it a lot. When I was learning about sales mainly. And I thought, yeah, it's easy. I would go and ask questions. And yeah, the questions are they yes and no? Usually like you will not get anywhere. Now, one thing which is I should maybe have asked you before. So you run Boundless, right? So the word boundless.
Yes.
What do you mean by a boundless entrepreneur?
Yes. Yeah, it comes from my own experience. So I believe that everyone have the capacity to become an entrepreneur. And it's all about expanding your horizon. And expanding your horizon means that you believe that you can do a lot of things. Life definitely has the impossibles, but it's all about how you expand your mindset. And I really care a lot about the mindset. You either win or lose only in your head. So for example, if we recall the first two stories from my experience, I could say I lost in the second one, or even the first one. Actually, in the first one, I thought that I lost, and it just happened. I got lucky, and I was able to overcome that AWS build problem. In the second one, I did not believe that I'm lost. I believe that there is something that can be done. And actually, by the way, here's also another aspect of that story. My VC told me back then, you know what? Let's shut down the company. There's no way for us to do anything. And I told him, you know what? No, there's one last bullet that I need to fire. And if it works, then at least, this is great. If it doesn't, at least we tried. And I fired the bullet and it worked. So boundless is that, and that's what I want everyone to think of. Again, it's in your head and in your mind. How do you progress and how do you look at your journey? There's also another aspect that I talk about it in the last chapter of the book, which is what if your startup did not work? What would you do? And I'm telling everyone, even before, from the beginning, you need to think of your company and your startup as a project you're working on. It is not you. And that's also a big thing. A lot of entrepreneurs confuse their identity with their startup because they work a lot in that problem. They think they're the same thing. So when the startup fails, they think that they failed. And then they lose the concept of wide horizons and their boundless abilities to really do things because they tie themselves too much into whatever they're doing right now. And hence that naming. I like that. There's no limit to what you can do as long as you have the right mindset.
Absolutely. And maybe I repeated this multiple times. I don't like the word fail because I don't believe in failure myself. And I learned this the hard way. I think that we learn, right? So we don't fail because failing and as a non native English speaker myself, failing it was when I learned the word very similar to falling, right? So failing and falling, and you know it's, yeah, but yeah, right. But I can stand up again, right? So it's not like I fell down and I cannot stand anymore. So it's all about learning, and I think the successful entrepreneurs, regardless again what their background, where they work, small company, big company, are the ones who believe that yeah, we're gonna face problems. Yeah, let's do it. Like, don't give up before you try everything. I like this, Muhammad. Really, really, I like it. Mohammed, like really the time flew. I didn't even saw it. But before I let you go, just a couple of two things. Um, First, if people want to get, more from the book, if they want, do you offer any? You said about the courses, is like what kind of things people can do
Yes.
to, get hold of this treasure of knowledge that you have.
Thank you, Mohammed. So, absolutely, they can go to our website. The website is boundlessfounder.co, and that's a community, and anyone can register for free. And I brought the sense of community to it because again, you want to interact with like-minded entrepreneurs, see their stories, share your stories with them, and we do that with a framework. I teach the fundamentals there. There are courses around how do you validate your idea, how do you get your first 10 customers, how do you do the fundraising, how do you build a marketing and sales machine, and so on. And what's unique about all of that, again, is coming from my book, The Inside Out Entrepreneur. I do not only talk about the mechanics of doing it, I talk about what is happening inside you so that you keep pushing and keep doing it. I guess that's the key differentiator with that community. And we always connect together. I like to connect with entrepreneurs. I have a biweekly startup insight session for anyone. They can go and register again through the website, and I just talk with entrepreneurs. Share what you have. Share the challenges. And we have conversation pretty much like you and I had today, and it's really fascinating to see others' ideas and backgrounds and how it's shaping, their journey. So Boundless Founder, the CEO, and of course, the book has a lot. And here's one thing I think I do not do that frequently or with anyone. We will share in the show notes a code for anyone. There is a paid version of the membership, but there's a free one. But we'll give everyone discount 30% of your listeners if they want to go and take their journey to the next level.
Really appreciate that, Mohammed. Really, I can't thank you enough on behalf of all the audience. The final thing I want to ask, and it's something, close to my heart. Now, how because when we talk, especially tech entrepreneurship, innovations, everything, the first place to come to mind is Silicon Valley, of course, and some other spots in the US, like where you are, Seattle, um, some places in Texas, some places. But how we can make this more global?
That's a great question. I was talking with a friend from China, and he was also talking about the same thing. And first of all, each country has its own unique aspects. You need to get the heart and the core or the spirit of the entrepreneurship. This is what you need. But you do not need to follow the same exact aspect. The US definitely is the model of capitalism around the world, but that's not necessarily the ideal system for all countries. Some countries are more geared more towards a social system, but that does not mean that you cannot become an entrepreneur. Some countries are a bit more regulated, like in China, for example, they want to regulate and maintain their culture. The US is built on the culture is a bit more dynamic. It goes with the consumption or consumerism in general. So you do not want to bring this copy and paste as is. So what you want is definitely the spirit of entrepreneurship. And that's why I'm telling all the entrepreneurs, look at the Silicon Valley and get what you believe is the right thing, which is how to build a business, how to move fast with technology, how to build a resilient team, how to build an ecosystem. And this is something that I am also passionate about is go and talk about in the Middle East and other places about that ecosystem that would match the environment and yet boost the environment without losing um, what's unique about it. You still want to keep it. You still want to keep all of that. There are a few things that might be tweaked here and there, but you should embrace that environment. So the Silicon Valley is definitely a shining beacon for the whole world, and there's no dispute about that. I learn a lot, and I go and I meet lots of entrepreneurs there, but not copy and paste. You cannot really take it as is.
Absolutely, no copy and paste, but yes, and thank you for mentioning this, Mohammed, because I think we need on a journey, especially in multiple emerging geographies around the globe, and of course, Middle East, MENA region is one of them. Like, don't copy and paste, but at the same time, learn from the thing that worked fine and push for them. And, doing this podcast and talking to people like yourself, Mohammed, I'm hoping that we, spark, we ignite, this, you know, things in every single entrepreneur to go and try to do the next big thing, also for investors as well, also for early adopters. And recently I start to talk about the early adopters more than I talk about founders and the VCs, because without people who buy the product, we don't have a business, right? So we need to spread also and encourage people to, go and try what these entrepreneurs are building. Yeah, it will not be perfect, right? It will be like very much like I would say unstable at the beginning, but that's fine. Like, give them a chance, see if they can
Exactly.
execute, if they can do what they're promised. So absolutely on this,
Yeah,
Muhammad,
yeah.
and
And
thank you again. Yeah, please.
I love that's why I love that, and I love the again the mission that you had just mentioned. You're connecting or bridging, the best practices and gold standard from the West or the Silicon Valley to the Middle East, and
Trying
that's
to.
great.
Trying to I try my best all the time, far from where I want to be, but yeah, keep, as you mentioned, keep trying, right? So you
It's a
said, like,
journey.
let me try to do the last bullet. So this is what I always aim to. Mohammed, I really enjoyed a lot, and thank you also for the code you mentioned at the end also as well. This will be in the show notes. I appreciate your time. I know how busy it can, and just for the sake of transparency, yeah, Muhammad like made it very early in his morning to record this. So thank you also for this. And this is for the audience. This is how I end usually my episodes. Guys, if you just discovered this by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give me a small favor. Share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe, of course. We're trying to do an impact here. And if you can share this, if you find it useful, please do so. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, thank you so much for being, supportive for the show and for me. Without you, I couldn't do what I do, of course, without my guests also as well. This is why I'm so humbled this year, starting from May and now continuing in June. The podcast is doing it in the top 200 Apple podcast chart across 6 countries simultaneously. This is unseen. Beginning of the year, we are doing like two at the same time, three at the same time. This is not me. This is my guests, of course, and you, the audience. So thank you very much. I'm so grateful for your support. And as I promise you always, I will be with you very soon in a new episode. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.